promised, really excited, as I just said, to welcome Elliot Coad, the co-founder and CEO of Ecologi. One of my favorite products out there actually to use, because you've taken a very visual approach for companies and individuals to compensate their carbon footprint and fund climate projects, and really an exciting solution in an industry that before you got active in it, I think was pretty boring very often, right? And you evolved beyond that as well. I won't pitch the entire company. I will let you share more, but you evolved into helping actually companies measure and then offset their carbon emissions. So great to have you, Elliot. I'll hand over to you, and the floor is yours.
Very nice. Thank you, Michael. Lovely to actually talk to you. As we're saying, we just kind of chat over WhatsApp, and that's all it's ever been. Great privilege to be here. I know the impact makers and this kind of community really well, and what a community, if you think about all the different people involved in this, and going through this deck, I was just thinking, there's a major opportunity that we have as impact makers, very aptly named, has this opportunity to redefine or maybe give us a new renewed hope, I guess, a renewed hope for climate and optimism, and redefining some of those kind of more horrendous looking climate predictions through bringing about a revolution. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is talk to you about tools and technology through the lens of ecology, because obviously that's what we know, but these are universal problems that we're coming to tackle, and I hope that people here on the call can draw little tidbits of inspiration. So we're going to really honing in on the kind of the underlying root causes, essentially. Just as a quick way of introduction, so I'm Elliot and CEO of Ecologi and co-founder, and we started in 2019. Started off the back of a really basic idea where I was on the way to work when I was working in London at the time, buying myself the 10,000th fancy cup of oat-based coffee, and I was just tossed off the amount of money I probably spent on these coffees. And as much as I love coffees, I deeply love this planet that we're on, at least as much as coffee. But I was thinking, how much money do I put into coffee, into saving the planet versus coffee? And there's almost non-existent. I was looking after my carbon footprint. I was trying to make the reductions, but really that kind of jangling pocket change that's in that I have to spend could be doing something interesting. And so what came out of that kind of idea, we've been busy over the last 3 years. So just a little mini introduction of Ecologi. So we have this community of over 16,000 businesses now, and maybe about 30,000 individuals and families. And we're just, at the moment, just funding climate solutions that work and ready to scale. So to date, we've had 2.3 million tons of certified kind of tons of carbon avoided, which is roughly around 8 to 10 million barrels of oil not being burned and entering the atmosphere. Something that we're incredibly proud of, as you can imagine, for just a little tiny startup. We'll come back to the concept of collective action and community in a bit, and their role. Here's like a handful of our projects that we supported around the world in terms of renewable energy. These are some of the reforestation projects and preventing deforestation and kind of peatland restoration and all sorts of nature-based solutions. The number is kind of doubled on this screen and this screen. I need to update the slide, but we're kind of adding a lot. We're funding a lot of different and very diverse climate solutions around the globe. There's a handful of community-based climate solutions too. We'll go into kind of the details here, but just rest assured that we might chat about trees quite a lot, because this is kind of like a gateway solution that is close to many people's heart, and then we kind of slide on in with the great gamut of other solutions too. So to date, we've funded over 52 million trees. We've just come back from visiting one of our largest tree planting sites, and it was this truly moving experience of seeing our trees growing and being healthy as far as the eye could see, from horizon to horizon. So bringing it back to these kind of root causes, or the hurdles, I guess, that we as Ecologi are really passionate over. well, passion being an operative word here, is we want to connect that passion that exists within the world with action. You know, passion, if you think of, I think the World Research Institute did a survey where they found that over 5.5 billion people deeply cared about anthropogenic climate change. That's the majority of the people on this planet who are acutely aware of it. So what action is that passion leading to? You know, how many times have we seen this kind of, or heard this statement, we must act now? You know, whenever I think of that statement, I think of David Attenborough and where he goes at the end of Planet Earth 7 or whatever, says we must act now. And you go, well, you know, what do you think when you think about must act now? Is that recycle harder, get more bamboo versions of things? I mean, does any of us really think that it's going to have this kind of material effect on, you know, stabilizing the climate? You know, you don't feel particularly part of driving that change required. So that kind of the act part is that, you know, you're often dumbfounded. And if you're a business, how do you think about, you know, less informed businesses think about maybe it's not having milk in the office fridge, but like an oat-based version of it? You know, is that going to do the job? So the act now part isn't there, and it's the lack of tools that I believe are the, you know, the primary driver for that. I'll come back to that. So the passion isn't leading to action, and nor is the money leading to solutions. So just looking at the solution side of this for equation for a second, you know, I'm sure a lot of people here will be familiar with the work of Project Drawdown Research Institute. They've listed 84 climate solutions that have mass capability to be scaled readily. There's no breakthrough in technology that is required. They just need funding. And if you think about the funding element, is there enough money to fund these sorts of solutions? Well, if you remove businesses from the kind of this concept in terms of business budget, and just think about our budget as an individual, well, there's 5.5 billion people who deeply care about climate change. There's well over 1 billion people who can easily afford like $10 a month. It's about $100 a month. So maybe you've got a couple of different kind of subscriptions or some nice little luxuries, and then $10 is left over funding some climate solutions. Well, just doing the maths, you know, kind of basic desk research shows this inordinate or this kind of outsized opportunity of moving the needle on global emissions. The economics might get a bit wobbly at the end of the scale, but you know, any degree or any fraction of this target is worth pursuing. And you know, doesn't the you know the world needs every lever to be pulled on, and we see this as a major opportunity. But what is it that's going to connect those people to the action? So passion's not leading to action, money's not leading to solutions. What can we do about it? Well, I honestly believe it's tools that are lacking. So if you think about humanity and how we go through these kind of giant epochs, those big moments of time for humanity, it's often been massively enabled by a tool. You know, think about the chisel or anything as recent as the internet. It's those tools that redefine, you know, those kind of big chapters for humanity. You know, when we think of we need to act now, what is the kind of what's the iPhone of acting right now, but for climate change? You know, what tool is it that we pick up and put by our sides where we feel enabled or supercharged into doing something really meaningful? So here at Ecologi, we've got two of these kind of concepts of tools. Obviously, we're talking about us here, but I hope they're the kind of the root causes and the hurdles and the kind of bare tenets of what we're talking about here are applicable in your world that you're working towards. So first of all, we'll talk about a subscription service to reverse climate change, and the second is carbon footprinting, but for free for businesses. And those two things we believe can bring about like a seismic change, you know, beyond what is thought of in the climate predictions. So first of all, subscription service to reverse climate change, initially for individuals, but maybe for teams as well, for businesses. This is just that kind of almost like Netflix-like subscription, but instead of putting money into funding you know, TV studios and production houses and data centers, the money is going into climate action instead. You know, and if you have 200 million paid subscribers like you do for Netflix, then that's a bonkers amount of climate solutions being funded, and we believe amazing things will happen. So I'm going to do a little whistle-stop tour. It's not just about funding climate solutions, because you've always been able to fund climate solutions, but it just hasn't happened. So you just need to create this kind of engagement layer, this kind of, what we do really well with tech and apps, and the best apps that are out there, that kind of beautiful layer, that engagement layer. You need to apply that to the world of climate, and also storytelling too. I hope that you're able to hear our collaboration with George.
In 100 years, all they're going to know about us is the world that we left behind. With climate change, we can't press rewind, but we can find solutions that stand the test of time. How do I rectify the effect of my fuel consumption on those next in line? How about planting a tree? That's something I could get behind. What if I could be part of a movement to make a lasting improvement to our daily lives, our larger condition, a movement to reduce our carbon emissions? What if the answer could be as simple as planting a tree through a team with a dream and the means to plant it for me? See, in 100 years, all they're gonna know about us is the world that we left behind. So let's decide to invest the time and sow seeds of hope for those next in line.
Nice. So storytelling is this kind of huge opportunity. The world's best storytellers, just like we saw from George, if we give them a platform, incredible things can happen. We just apply it to the world of climate, and so let's talk about the impacts. Everyone is super cynical. I'm super cynical. Is the impact real? Is there a tree real, for example? So this is where technology and data can really be leveraged. So, for example, our latest generation of tree planters, they actually take a photo of each individual tree. You can see that through the virtual forest, but you see the actual species, the data when in the ground, GPS location, and you can keep on going. We work with a handful of partners that really lift the lid and give extra kind of tangibility to the impact you're making. Just on the top left, this is a time lapse of one of the solar farms that we funded. How, for me, that makes a massive difference to see that elapsing over time, where you see the solar farm actually being built and rolled out. The more we can connect you to it, the better. And here's just a quick video of when we just came back from Kenya, visiting our largest planting site. So the colors are a bit weird, but because we haven't finished editing it, that sort of thing. But just give you a bit of a flavor. Nice. So, us being there with a videographer, a drone operator, and our impact team, we're going to be able to bring that person funding the tree just nose to nose with the impact that's being funded. This is actually one of our trees that was planted in the ground just over a year ago. It's already taller than me as a 6 foot tall person. It's these kind of little nuggets that could be worth 10,000 photos of just like an anonymous tree, anonymous tree, anonymous tree. But if we can do it through the lens of storytelling, something greater than the sum of its parts can happen. So as I say, in the kind of the role of tech and apps and all sorts, let's apply all that kind of goodness, and wrap it up into something that is kind of engaging, and you leverage the best of the kind of the gamification elements and apply it into our world. So we've got like these kind of leaderboards and badges, and also if you're a purpose-led organization, of course you have to walk the walk. So align yourself as close to that mission as possible, as if you were a non-profit. I was going to skip through a few other things. So I did want to talk about kind of the opportunity of, or understanding the kind of the major hurdles that businesses are facing right now, and which is, which I believe is, it's just stopping. It's just stopping progress, and how when we tear those down, something brilliant can happen beyond our predictions. So, free carbon footprinting for businesses. So we have a tool called Ecologi Zero. It's a carbon accounting tool for businesses up to a couple hundred employees. So how it works, essentially, you integrate with your accounting software. So every business under the sun has some sort of accounting software, but that accounting software has amazing access to this kind of rich kind of paper trail of where your carbon emissions lie by when you dig into it on a per transaction basis. If you understand the suppliers that sit behind those transactions, you can categorize them and bring it into the carbon accounting world, where you can identify a transaction as let's say computer hardware. You can find out what, using the loading up these carbon databases, what the emissions are like for when you spend, let's say, £1,000 in the computer hardware world in a particular country. And that becomes extremely finely grained in terms of a calculation when you add in 10,000 data points, for example, over the course of a year, versus maybe just a handful of data points as to when you're doing a traditional carbon footprinting approach. So it's a really interesting opportunity that leveraging technology and through integrations has with it. So that automation gets you a long way, does a lot of grunt work. You get to refine it, kind of keep on layering it. Any information you know about your business operation, you should be able to layer it in and kind of keep on making more and more accurate. When you're there, you'll be wanting to set a target. And a lot of people here know about the net zero pathway, net zero by 2040 or 2050, and making sure that there are nearer term targets, things to celebrate, when you achieve those. What we love to focus on is the supply chain. When you start to understand your carbon footprint, you realize over 95% of the emissions lie within your supply chain, which can be kind of infuriating. So also, you're not going to be able to achieve net zero emissions when you're simply just estimating their emissions. And so we have really rallied around Ecologi, kind of not just estimating the emissions, but directly calculating them. So we've offered Ecologi Zero for free. And so what that means is that you could one tap invite your entire supply network. For Ecologi ourselves, we've got over 450 different suppliers, which is mind-boggling if you actually end up counting them and tracking them all. It felt like we'd only have 50. But if you imagine the step change that can happen if all of those businesses came to join you also on the net zero journey. And some really interesting market dynamics, because let's say if you're estimating emissions, we can make recommendations to a low carbon alternative. Don't go with Amazon Web Services because you go to, I don't know, Crystal Hosting or whatever, like a low carbon version of it. And then there's a really nice incentive for that business for, let's say, a low carbon version of Amazon Web Services to even exist. And that would be, I think that's going to be very powerful when that market sort of, percolates, and that's going to really shift their paradigm. So understanding those kind of barriers is the whole part of the problem. So, for us with Ecologi Zero, we've focused on there's a knowledge barrier, there's a trust barrier, and there's a finance barrier. What if you decide to start again and just ignore those as if they aren't barriers or they're opportunities? So, in terms of those barriers, it's bringing it back to why we're here and why we're all gathered here today. We're on track for 2.7 degrees, and that's horrifying the more you know about it. But this is from rigorous climate predictions. But those climate predictions, they don't account for a massive revolution, something that is unforecasted but can bring around radical transformation. So, what's interesting is studying the successful revolutions throughout history. This is a quote somewhat attributed to Lenin after the successful revolution in Russia, the Workers' Revolution in 1917. Just 2 months before the revolution occurred, Lenin was saying, look, I don't think this change is going to come about in my lifetime, but we should try anyway. And, basically in the blink of an eye, that change did happen. These revolutions are always, without exception, unpredictable as to when they're going to land. They're unable to be forecasted. And the impact of such a thing has this kind of major opportunity for what we do as technologists. Solar is another great example. Unpredictable in terms of how crazy that price reduction of solar has become. So, the impact makers and kind of the climate founders that we have, and those who are looking to kind of get into this space, we have this insane opportunity and role that we can bring around the best of technology and apply it into the world of climate. And we can engineer the revolution to happen sooner than we'd want it to. Pretty much at time, and I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity. I hope there are some nice kind of tidbits here that you can kind of draw from, little elements of inspiration that you can bring into your lives or into your startup, or help kind of drive and bring about and bring the timeline of that revolution happening just that little bit sooner. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Elliot. Really appreciate you joining us and taking the time. And we definitely got to chat more.
Just while waiting for
hang out
to get up and running. If anyone wants to find out what we're up to, you saw enough Ecologi logos. So apologies for that, but you can more than welcome to get involved, check us out. We'd love to see you. We're through an open beta phase of Ecologi Zero. It's free. Please use it. Please give us the feedback, and we'll feast off that for months to come.
All right. I hope everybody can hear me. Thank